Welcome back, Year 12 Global Politics. Today we will be focusing on the national interest of international standing. I will start by giving you the glossary definition from VCAR about what international standing means. I'll give you some examples of good international standing and bad international standing, as well as the factors that shape international standing. Throughout this video, the examples that I will be referring to will be about China. In terms of key knowledge, we have to obviously understand factors, so why China is pursuing international standing, as well as how effective they have been in achieving international standing. And that's when we have to be evaluating. So looking at the positives and the negatives. Okay, so the glossary from the study design says that international standing of a state is an important national interest as it influences the power a state has in global politics. Other national interests impact on international standing, as well as the state's role and recognition in intergovernmental organisations and as a proponent of international law. If a state has a poor international standing, it may threaten their sovereignty. So states like China, if they act in a positive way in the United Nations, if they uphold international law, then they will be seen as being a good international citizen. Whereas if they do things badly, well, that could impact their sovereignty. So let's get into some examples. There have been some really great actions taken by China to pursue international standing. The first is the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. In 2021, the bank has 102 members. As a leader of the bank, China is able to invest and grow and help grow a number of member states' economies. It has demonstrated that they are trying to help states, try to aid them, help their economies grow, rather than being an overpowering and dominant country. So it has allowed China to kind of return to that important role that it wants to be in that region, in the Asia Pacific region as well, that they want to be seen as a peaceful power as opposed to being an aggressive hegemon. So what's shaping that is that China wants to be they have this cultural characteristic as being peaceful, that they're not trying to be expansionist, that their Chinese foreign policy is just on them being a peaceful power. So that's kind of what is shaping their pursuit there. Other good actions. So in the Paris Climate Agreement, during the Paris Climate Agreement talks, China was seen as being very positive. They took a lead role in promoting and setting an example of the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. This was also furthered by the fact that the US did withdraw from the agreements. China did and were seen at the time as being a very positive power in that region, in that space. And since then, China has done some good things in relation to climate change. They have closed down a number of factories in Beijing and have also pledged to stop building coal-fired plants overseas. So they are thinking, in a positive way when it comes to environmental security and the Paris Climate Agreement. The reason why China is doing this is because they are trying to return to that peaceful and respected power in the region, and they are, by taking a lead role in the Paris Climate Agreement, they are resuming that rightful and natural role. So that's something good that they are doing. The last example there is about mask diplomacy, and we could also mention vaccine diplomacy. After the spread of COVID, China went on an aid offensive. They provided $20 million to the World Health Organization. They provided PPE gear, ventilation masks, and other kits to various countries around the world, such as Pakistan, Laos, Thailand, Iran, Japan, and Cambodia. So a number of countries were given a lot of masks and equipment to help them fight the virus. And that was to help improve China's image because at the time, China wasn't seen as being very good because the virus did start in China. So it did help China return to and maybe be seen as being a helpful power. Also with vaccines, they did provide 500 million vaccines to more than 45 countries. So while the rest of the world was kind of, hoarding their vaccines and not sharing them with other countries, China was trying to help others and were donating a number of those vaccines. So President Xi has spoken about this and said it was part of a global public good, part of his vision for a shared future for the people. So, although people have been skeptical about the use of the masks and vaccines to countries, um, it is positive for China. It is being seen as them helping and being a good international citizen. So it's probably helped improve their image following COVID. Okay, however, there are some negatives about China's international standing. The first is ignoring international law in relation to the South China Sea. Um, After the ICJ ruled that China's nine-dash line um, argument, and that they basically found that they had no historical claim to that, and that the nine-dash line wasn't a valid excuse to be operating in that region. So the ICJ ruled against China. However, China um, ignored that international ruling and continues to operate in that area despite the rule of law. So this has undermined their standing because they are being seen as, ignoring a fair and independent tribunal. So people have looked at that quite critically. Another example that we could talk about is the Belt and Road Initiative, depth trap diplomacy. So what's been happening in that space is that countries have invested into the Belt and Road, they've run out of money, and China has given them a loan or has given them something to help keep them. And, they have been described by some as weaponizing foreign direct investment. We also remember, some of you may remember, that Victoria did withdraw from the Belt and Road Initiative due to these concerns. So, it isn't being seen as being very positive. Another example you could probably bring up is also re-education camps in Xinjiang. So a number of officials have described those camps as genocide. Although China believes that it's part of their people's war on terror, there has been a lot of international condemnation about those camps. The fact that there's 2 million people being held there, up to 2 million people being held there, it has been seen as being very negative. So, in the UN, in the US and the EU, they have placed sanctions on officials who have been involved in this. And the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, has described it as genocide and crimes against humanity. So, China's human rights record has also undermined her standing in the international community because they are being seen as, violating international law because holding these people in these communities is a form of torture, but also as it's being seen as, abusing human rights, which is also, not good if you want to be seen as a good international citizen. So they are some examples of China having a negative international standing. So I hope that is helpful. I hope that gives you some ideas of some examples you could use, as well as factors that shape international standing. That's it for our national interests. The next few videos will focus on power and foreign policy instruments. Okay.